Hey, welcome to my show. This is Chasing Adrenaline. I'm your host, Megan Reneau, and today's special guest is Michelle Elise Shock. Thank you for coming on.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for
Um,
having me. This is fun.
yeah, I was excited. I kind of reached out to you, left field. I hadn't actually met you or worked with you yet. So I was really happy that you wanted to take the time to connect with us and talk all about all the crazy stuff you do.
Yeah, it's a interesting life of many facets. So I
It is.
appreciate you reaching out and wanting to hear, just about who I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's super exciting. So I guess, do you want to tell everybody kind of how you got into this industry, like what you
Mhm.
do?
Yeah, I'm a stunt actress. I grew up in entertainment. So as a child, I was around the symphony, the ballet, Shakespeare theater, local civic theater. I did musical theater, I did classical theater. And eventually I made my way into film and pursuing film acting in like my early 20s. I had been doing like music video stuff. I lived in Florida. So there was a lot of that in like Southern Florida and commercials. But then I found my way into film and I had, funny enough, I had gotten a role in a zombie film called Rockabilly Zombie Weekend, which was also known overseas as Dead Wedding. And I got the role. I went in to do a pinup contest, and it was like a live runway contest, and we had to dress up like a zombie and be a zombie pinup girl, and then whoever won would get like a featured spot, right? And a good buddy of mine who's here in California now too, Terry Griffin, she body painted me. And I wore this little lingerie set and I did the whole pinup thing, but I was body painted like a zombie. And I went down the runway with one high heel on to do my like zombie walk. And I won. And I stayed in character for like the whole event. And the people that were on the production team approached me and were like, "Hey, we want you to come in and read for this part actually, instead of just doing a featured thing. We think you'd be great for the supporting role to our lead woman." So I went in and I read for the part of Mika and I got it. And so I ended up on this zombie film via pinup contest with my first feature film with a supporting role. And while I was on set one night, Alan D'Antoni, who's from Georgia, he was our go-to stunt guy for that, and he was crashing a truck into a building and like a barn, an old barn. And I remember walking up to him, and it was funny because it was really cold that night, and I had this like crop top and Daisy Duke shorts on, and they have me in like nothing.
Yeah.
And I see him sitting at like the top of this little vantage point looking at the barn, and I walked up to him and I was like, "So you're gonna crash that truck into that building?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I went, "Cool. I want to do that." And he went, "Yeah. Do you do any like sports or anything?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually." And I was telling him I grew up riding motorcycles my whole life, and I rode horses, and I was a national competitor and had a championship, and I had all these other various skills: surfing, diving, like grew up on the water. My whole family are all watermen. And he was like, "Man, yeah, you should do stunts." And he goes, "You should maybe do that." And I went, "Nah, I want to act." And I think I went on with
Well,
acting for like another few years, and it wasn't until I made it out to like California. At that time I had just gotten married, and my husband at the time, we moved out to Northern California, and I was doing surfing on a video game and like surfing for commercials and horse stuff. And someone goes, "Hey, a lot of the stuff you do, you should be on stunt contracts." And I was like, what's that?" And they're like, "Yeah, you should meet this guy, Tony Vella." And so they put me in loop with Tony Vella, who runs Bay Area Stunts. And I emailed him. It was all very serendipitous as I listened to this story again. But
yeah.
I emailed him and was like, "Hey, someone told me I should do stunts." And a few people have told me. And I'm an actor and I have these skills, and here are the things I do. And I don't know the first thing about this. So, if you need me, I guess call me. And he was like, "All right, cool, whoever you are. I'll just he gets emails like that all the time. A lot of some people do. Now I even get those. Like, how do I be a stunt person? You're like, okay, that's the 50th person in the last month that asked me. It's everyone wants to do it, but rarely are the opportunities there, and rarely does anyone have the ego check that they need to actually do it. And a few days later, interestingly enough, Tony Vella calls me and he goes, "Hey, like this motorcycle job came up and we need a woman who can ride, and we don't have anyone on the team and we don't really have anyone in the area. And I kind of want to give you a shot at this. And it's a Virgin Holidays commercial. We're all going to ride in formation. We're going to cruise down the PCH, back and forth, real simple, just a little, flying A." And then he said, it's going to be really easy. And I said, yeah, sure. I'll try it. Let's see how I like it. And a whole bunch of stuff went wrong on that shoot that had nothing to do with us. It was just like, like the transpo guy for the bike that I was supposed to be on, he dumped it and the clutch broke. And I had to ride it with like a really unsure first gear and startup, right? So I'm like, I don't know if the bike's gonna go. And here was the kicker: the commercial was live. It wasn't
Oh,
pre-recorded. It was live all around the world. There were people all over the world, like London, Spain, here, like all over, that were gonna jump on this feed, and you're either in it or you're not. So if the bike didn't go, it was like you missed the spot. But everything went really, really well. Everything was handled well. It went great, and then at the end, like after we got done shooting, we're like, yeah, and we're like coming back and we're like, why is it, it's like very tense when we came back, and we're like, everyone looks really upset. And he was like, all right, we're just going to cruise over here and wait it out for a second. Well, apparently the guy that was in charge of the satellite dish to create the live feed, when he turned the dish, it unplugged.
oh no.
I've never seen someone pack up so damn fast on a set. He was like, as we're coming back, he's already like, I'm out of here. So, anyways, dealing with all that, dealing with the pressure of it, dealing with, all the ifs and ands and what ifs and, the things that can come up. He was really impressed with me, and he pulled me aside and he said, I know you really want to do acting, and I know you're good at it and it's what you know, but I really believe in you for this. And I think that if you can just persevere and keep your head down and focus on it, you'll do really, really well for yourself, and you can always go back to acting later. And I said, you know what? I had always kind of jumped around a lot of stuff, and I felt like I was never really good at completing something that I had started. I wanted to finish something I started, and I thought that this was the opportunity to really do that as an adult. So I did.
Yeah, you found your focus point and then kinda just kept with that line for quite a long time. But there was something you said too where it is almost very serendipitous. Like, I
Mhm.
find a lot of the times, especially, like, I guess in our generation, we stunts almost found us
Mhm.
versus us pursuing it. But now that it's becoming such a bigger market, people are coming to us and being like, "How do I get in?" And it is the million-dollar question because it's like acting, everybody's journey and way into it will be different. And we could give somebody 50 pointers, but how they get in could be one that we never even talked about, or that opportunity.
Right. Well, and also you can give them a million pointers, but like, are they really going to listen? Or because
Yeah.
I've seen so many people get advice from the best resources on the planet that they could get it from, and they don't listen. And I have to admit, I've made that mistake of where I didn't listen to somebody's advice, and generally it was regarding something more social than anything, right? Because
Yeah.
in our head we want to separate like professional social. I always was very good for the most part at following professional advice, but also I have a heart for justice. And so, and when I was younger especially, I didn't have a filter. So I have definitely, it's very hard navigating, the advice you get professionally versus like what you believe in socially. And it's hard in when you're young. And the thing is with stunts, you do kind of have to start young. I was young-ish, not as young as a lot of people. um but we are all young, and we're navigating like a really interesting world and business, so it's hard.
Yeah.
And now you have social media on top of that, so you have people who they could just create a bunch of content and call themselves a stunt person, and that doesn't mean they've ever actually worked on a set or for a stunt coordinator or on a SAG contract, but they can be self-proclaimed now because you could be a social media stunt person.
I think what I've noticed about like social media stunt people like you're talking about, especially in our age, is that you remember like when we were younger, there was that show. I don't remember if I'm saying this correctly or if this is the show's name. I'm pretty sure it is, but it was like, wasn't it like Jackass or something? And they did their own stunts.
Yeah.
But yeah, there just wasn't like the safety component. So I feel like, people that are making the name on Instagram or, TikTok or what they're doing. But I think as somebody in the stunt, career, I look at them like, "Hey, they're doing all this stuff, but, what's their safety aspect?" Like, are they considering that? Because a lot of times when we've gotten roles, it comes down to our stunt coordinators trusting us on set. So I
Mhm.
do feel like it's good that they're putting out content, but I don't see a lot of the behind the scenes on how they're making it safe or, like, they're almost proud of their injuries, and it's like, but we try to avoid our injuries.
Well,
So I
most of the time they aren't making it safe. That's
right?
the
Yeah.
thing, and I feel like those are the kind of people we run into who get a job coordinating a non-union low budget project, and then you show up and you're like, shit, this is dangerous looking, right? Like,
Yes.
and maybe you don't, if you're new, you don't recognize that.
Mhm.
But now as a seasoned performer, you'd see that and go, ooh, right? Like whether like those lines look old and not safe, or like those just don't look tied off correctly, or they that pick point's in the wrong place, or little details like that even. Or placement of video village, and that can be on a big production too. There's Safety is overlooked, and that's not uncommon on larger sets too. So
Yeah.
sometimes there's just so much going on, and also people are afraid to speak up for themselves. So, and then there's new people that come in that are afraid to say they can't do something, right? Or
Yeah.
they don't feel comfortable doing something, or maybe they just have a lot of ego. Like, this is one business where it blows my mind. Ego is like the most dangerous component you can have in stunts,
It
and
definitely
it's
is.
also the most common.
It is, well, because it's exciting, right? So, I think people get a lot of that, that cool props from their peers and stuff, and it almost makes them wanna risk more, like, they wanna go bigger, and that's why, like, I'm sure you've seen shows too where they keep the stunts small, but they're actually so realistic and interesting because they are. So there's that different focus even of, like, bigger is not always better, but they push their limits if they're going for the ego and the cool factor instead of keeping it in a realm of, like, realistic and safety, but I feel like, like, our safety goggles have gone on, and it's everything that we see when we're on set.
Right, and there's a time and place for those big stunts, right? Like we all saw Fall Guy.
Yeah,
Incredible work, Every single one of those stuntmen did a phenomenal job, and they were all the absolute best people for those roles and for those skills, and they were necessary. But I also guarantee you every single one of those guys was really dialed in when it came to safety, and a few who I know personally, I know would never skip a detail,
yeah,
or mention something if that was a team that was built around communication and trust and familiarity, um but that's also like a once in a lifetime kind of thing,
yeah,
that's not as common. To work on a project like that is probably such a incredible thing because it was specifically geared towards that, right? But the majority of the stuff that I've been able to work on personally are a lot of those smaller stunts that you're talking about that are like very detailed, very dialed in, and very realistic looking, because it's maybe for a dramatic series or something that was like real life. It needs to look like real life. And in those moments, we're able to like dial back a bit and really, we're not trying to go big. That's not the point of it, I think for the people who work on a lot of the superhero stuff, that's where you're gonna see that, or like, Michael Bay films.
yeah,
That's where you're gonna see that, and like it's like, okay, do I speak up? But I feel like the people that are going on all those things are also very seasoned, but you always have the new person that gets brought in. So I don't, it can happen anywhere. It can happen on any set. It could definitely happen on any set, but you do know on these non-union things, and there's way less oversight on everything, and
Yeah.
you have more people trying to cut corners and cut costs. They're trying to be in
They're
the
wearing
pocket.
multiple hats as well.
They're what?
They're wearing, like, multiple hats, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's a lot, like, task management becomes an issue. But also, being in the pocket of the producer, or wanting to make the agency. Like, I've seen that happen on commercials where it's like, the person wants to really make the agency happy. And so they're willing to cut safety corners, or ask for things that just aren't even necessary, like,
Yeah.
for that particular spot. But so I don't know, I think that's where it's really important for us to learn how to speak up for ourselves, and also to do so with a level of diplomacy. That's the key. That's what
Yeah.
I've had to learn in my later portion of my career, is how to have, what's the word? Not just diplomacy, but like,
Well, basically having a voice without overstepping.
right. Right, which for me has always been easy onset, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was raised riding horses with, European teachers, or Brazilian teachers even. And it's very much yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. Like, and then when they make a correction, you don't take it to heart. It's not personal. You're there in order to get corrected. Like, you're not going to become a better rider. Your horse isn't going to be a better horse if you sit there and you argue and you get your feelings hurt. You just need to suck it up and keep going. And if you fall off, you get back on, unless you need to go to the hospital. So that's just what was, like, ingrained in me as a kid, as an athlete, right? And then that's transferred over into my professional career. It's outside of that. It's when you're in your everyday life, when you're like, wait a minute, like, why isn't my contract right? Why am I not getting the same residuals? Why am I not being treated the same way? Why am I being compromised, right? Or why is that person being compromised? Or why is this being unequal or unfair? Like, if there's a level of justice that some can have, and I always kind of had, in how others are being treated, or and that goes outside of the business, but it leaks in because we're a business for people, right? We're a business for creatives.
And something you said that's really important is when you're doing stunts, we don't necessarily always have agents, so
Mhm.
we are the ones having to like talk about, contracts or any stuff. When you have to get into the nitty gritty business part that normally agents, if you're acting, will take care of for us. So, I mean, that was, I just wanted to point that out because it's just something people don't always talk about, but we are kind of our own advocates in stunts. So I think sometimes that's why we have to, like you said, learn to speak up, but also how to approach the subject without getting, any heat from it.
Right. And also, people have there's always ego involved, because who knows, this coordinator has to answer to this director and these producers and these, the executives, or whatever the order is for them. And if they feel like you are challenging their authority, or you're making them look bad in front of others, right? Like, they don't have a handle on their team or the task at hand, they can be a little fragile sometimes, and you have to keep that in mind. And it's a fragility that we would probably also have. We have to put ourselves in their shoes, like, man, they're under a lot of pressure. And
Yeah.
so I've found a, like, gracefulness with how to do that, right? Like, how to like, no one will even know I'm having that conversation with them, right? As far as it looks to everyone else, I'm just having a little friendly powwow with, my buddy the coordinator, or my boss.
Yeah.
And but I'm also smiling and telling them, hey, I'm, like, feeling a little concerned about this one little thing. Could you double check that for me and make sure it's okay? And, like, just like, I'm getting a weird feeling, and I don't know. I want to bring it up to you. And but I've also been really lucky to have pretty good relationships with everyone I've worked
Yeah.
for.
I was gonna say,
Um,
like, in our field too, like, that's the difference. People who, are new on set, where they don't always have the relationship with the coordinators yet to feel comfortable, but that's usually when I find the coordinators will bring us out, is they wanna know that we're gonna come to them about that stuff too. Obviously they don't like it too much, like, some if, if you're asking so many questions and you're so concerned, they're gonna feel like you're not ready. So it is that fine
Right.
line still, but I do feel like that
You don't
seems
want to be a whiner, you know, you don't want to be a complainer and you don't want to be a worry wart. But that's where you shouldn't go on jobs unless you are seasoned enough to do it right. So
yeah,
you should be able to watch the setup and watch everything and do the rehearsal and know that then after you've observed everything, then you can come to your coordinator with any final concerns, right?
yeah.
I
I
think
found out
where
Sorry, go ahead.
was gonna say, I think where I've seen things go wrong is when then all of a sudden during the rehearsal, after the rehearsal is done, something gets changed, an element gets changed, and
Yeah.
then at the last minute it's thrown at the performer, and they're like, "Whoa, wait, what? That wasn't there when we ran this." And so I think that's where I've seen things go wrong too, where they don't speak up, and then they didn't ever run that way, and then it doesn't go well, and so that's where you have to go. Oh, hey, that changed, can we run it? And then it's like, well, then there's the fact that maybe sometimes there isn't enough time to run it. So it's like a rock and a hard place. Sometimes you have to find the balance, and it's definitely a juggling act, and it can drive people nuts.
Well, and that's where the movie magic comes in where where we watch the finished product and we're like, "Oh, that day," we always
Yeah,
have days that are labeled ahead, oh, like, like Bridge Day or, something.
Ridge Day. God.
I said to say Bridge Day, and you already have your own stories that I like, that are completely different than mine, but
Well, there's just been really unfortunate things that have happened involving bridges, but yes. So I think that, yeah, it's like a learning curve, and I think some people are better at, um if they're not an A personality, maybe, like, and they come into this business, a little more meek and a little more quiet, then sometimes they'll do better, right? I think A
yeah,
personalities have a challenge in this, and I'm definitely an A personality type. So it's hard for me to come in and or it was hard for me to come in and to learn how to like manage that in a way, right? To make it symbiotic with other people's A type personalities.
well, and our industry is full of different personality types, like, every industry has their own things, but I feel like, when you're dealing with artists, everybody's very particular, everybody has their own way of doing things, how they hear words is different, like, you really have to know what
Yeah.
to go with.
Gosh, interpretation is everything. And that's a fascinating subject because
Right.
I've even recently been thinking about that, where you can be having a conversation with someone and what they're hearing is a completely different interaction than yourself, because maybe they understand, they just hear words differently, or their interpretations are involved, or there's a level of projection that happens, mentally and emotionally with whatever topic you're talking about. And we don't like to clarify as humans. I think we're just like, oh yeah, 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 oh yeah,
Yeah.
when really you should go, did you mean this? Like, being able to have active listening in a conversation is, a lot of people don't know that skill. So I feel like there's always, especially in this business, so many misunderstandings.
Yeah, and it can really
Um,
make or break you in the career too, like, you can ruin a relationship because you said "thou" wrong in a sentence.
yeah, the emphasis. Uh,
Yes, I
I've
know,
definitely dealt with that, especially on the internet, where they're like, "You caps locked this word." I'm like, "Whoa, that's what you got from this?"
right?
Whoa, okay, and then a broad generalization is then made about your entire personal character based off of one interaction that they read from you, not even that they personally had with you.
Or
So,
personally knew you.
right. You know what? Honestly, the internet, do
It's
you
nuts.
remember life before the internet?
I do, I liked it a lot better.
It was great. And don't get me wrong, the internet has great benefits, but boy, are we like
Well, we're living
in
on
a,
it now, right? Like, we're less living in society, and it's like our half of our life, 50, 80% for some people is just their social media, and they're not really, like, experiencing life outside of it.
And that's where they get all their news from too, you know.
Yeah, which is scary.
But also, we get information so fast now, and we're interacting with
Yeah,
so many more people. I've said it before, and I've had this idea challenged, but I don't think we're meant to interact with so many people on such a frequent basis. And I think that's also why we're seeing even more like cases of depression and anxiety and trauma. And, I think we're meant to be outside and interacting with the world immediately around us, and now there's this virtual component, and
yeah,
there are people who are even like fully living in their virtual worlds, which is
yeah.
not healthy in my opinion, but what do I know, I'm
We're not from that generation. We're from the one that started on computers. I guess we had some time outside.
I remember computers in the home very well, only because my dad is a tech guy. So
Yeah,
my father developed RAID systems, storage systems, and hard drives, and he was one of the founding or developers for that. And he, had computers, the dinosaur ones, the big ones,
yes.
and I
Everything.
remember him, I was just little, and I remember him taking apart the computer and showing my brother how to, how a motherboard is put together and how to build the computer. Like he was teaching us how to build computers when we were little. And then I remember the evolution of them. I remember, those big things turning into like, oh, now we got this cool flat screen and this tower. And, then now the tower is smaller. It got smaller and smaller and thinner and thinner. And then the screen got flatter and flatter and flatter and wider. And now it rotates and tilts, and it did all these things. And now you can put two together. And
Yeah,
it was interesting. And I remember all the things that came out. I remember when it was like, the Oregon Trail, game. And then all of a sudden it was, colored. It was the color came in, and and then you had Windows programs that came in, and
yeah,
it was just amazing to watch. And then at some point it was like this, and it was just so fast how it developed. All of a sudden we're connected to all these people. All of a sudden we can talk to people. I remember being in, you know AOL chat rooms talking to people I probably absolutely should not have. But, you know ASL
I know.
25 female, Pittsburgh. So
It's bringing back
it's
some memories.
yeah, yeah, and like just out of control, and I don't even let my daughter on computers actually now. She's 7, she'll be 8 in September, and I will once in a while pull up like maybe a YouTube video for her, but I don't let her on computers, and I limit her screen time as much as possible. And I try to keep her to long format stuff, because I've definitely found when she's watching like quick shows, or like things that she can like on a tablet, they have games and stuff like we do, like we scroll through. Any short format stuff tends to agitate her. And
Interesting.
yeah, and I noticed her having a shorter temper. She's more triggery. Her mood is like down. She's more sensitive. And so when I take that away and I'm like, we're only going to watch Bluey, and then maybe we'll watch some like movies together as a family. We watched Peter Rabbit the other day, like stuff like that. And we spend more time. Like I just started like getting board games again, right? We were playing Candyland the other day and listening to Soundgarden, and all of a sudden I'm like, what year is it? Uh, and
It does
I'm
feel like
like,
that, yeah.
and I got her playing Trouble, and like I've got all these different games, and like she's learning to play chess with me now, and I've never let her win. She has to actually fairly beat me. And she hates it, but also she appreciates it because she's learning how to really play chess. And she'll fair and square beat me every now and then, but it's I've noticed her mood just be much more stable, and her focus is better, and she's performing better in class, and even just in her outside of school activities, she seems to have like just a better performance in general. So there's something to it.
Yeah, no, I believe you for sure, we'll get into that because I do wanna bring up all the other stuff that you do. I do wanna go back to talking about a little bit about, like, what you do because like, you are kinda like the rider type person. So you do, you do car stuff, motorcycles. I saw they do free diving. So I want to get into a little bit back on that before we jump into, like I don't want to give anything away yet. So I want to jump back to that after.
So you're wanting to hear about skill sets.
Yeah. So you said, you've been doing stuff since you were a kid. So, like your water stuff, your riding, your motorcycle driving. So you kind of took the skills that you did since you were a kid and developed those into your professional skills and kind of what you specialized in.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it's funny because I feel like I had so many teachers and people when I was younger that were like, "You got to pick one thing," and I'm like, "Man, I'm glad I didn't because that worked out."
Yeah.
But yeah, I when I was younger, I grew up. Half of my family was on the coast, so I grew up in like Cocoa Beach area, Melbourne Beach, and I had family in South Florida too. And everybody surfed. Everyone surfed. Everyone dove. It was just normal life. Like they all were like fishermen. They'd go lobstering, and it's just part of the Florida lifestyle. So I grew up with that. It's funny. I see a lot of similarities between like Floridians and Hawaiians. Only Floridians are like a melting pot of people. Um, and then like a bunch of old retired white Jews down in Boca. But um, then as far as like horses, I picked up horses a little later. I was about 13 or 14. And ironically enough, I had just had a scoliosis surgery. So I had childhood scoliosis and it was severe. It was like a 71 and a 73-degree curve, an S curve. And I had that corrected with a doctor up in New Jersey who helped develop the Harrington rods. So he performed my surgery, full spinal fusion. And a year after I was healed, I was given permission to go back to normal life and do whatever I wanted. And I just felt this strong urge to ride. And I always wanted to. I'd ridden horses before, but not like in lessons, like in a lesson setting. And I'm one of those people, if you challenge me or tell me I can't do something, I'll be like, let's find out.
Now you're more
And
motivated.
yeah, yeah, it pushes me because I'm like, "Fuck, don't tell me what I can't do, right? I'll find out what I can't do. Like I set my own limits. So, and I will hardly ever give up. I'm just not that person. I've survived so much that I won't give up. So when I got into riding, I started when I was 13 or 14. I remember a lot of the girls, being like, "Well, I've ridden since I was 4 or 5, so you'll never catch up." When it came to showing. And I didn't even want to get into jumping. That's a funny thing. I didn't go into that going, "I'm going to be a jumper." My trainer like made me do it. And I was like, "But I'm okay like this." And she was like, "No, no, no, you're gonna jump if you're riding with me." I'm like, "Okay." And I remember the first time I went over a fence, it was like the most natural high I've ever felt in my life. I'm like, "This is awesome." So I just kept at it. And then the more those girls, got mean with me, the more motivation I had to be like, "Watch what I can do." And surely enough, after a couple of years, I was beating them all. So then it was like I learned that I can do anything that I want to if I put my mind to it and I don't give up and I just eat, sleep, breathe and bleed that thing. And I definitely bled because there's a lot of falling down and making mistakes when you're learning to ride horses and you push yourself that way.
Well, and it's interesting
Um
you said that because I find a lot of people who are curious about stunts will say stuff like, "Oh, how are your injuries on set?" And I'm like, "Injuries are always in training. That's where we push ourselves."
yes, that's so funny. Yeah. It's always that, or it's when I'm doing something stupid too. Like I have to admit, it's my moments of stupidity, right? Like I think some of my worst injuries I've had were just totally unrelated. Minus I got a really bad shoulder injury at the Hooper Classic because I went and did the 100 race. And I was fine in the normal 100 race, but when we went on to do the relay, I got hit and I had someone's back tire hit my front tire and boy, that was like an ejection button just out. I've never felt ground hit so hard. And I managed to get back on another bike and finish the race with like a bad arm, and then a bottle of Cazadores got me through the rest of the classic. So but that's another situation where you're like, you're just with all your stunt buddies and you're doing dumb shit, and you get hurt, right? And I gotten a concussion once snowboarding with a helmet on. I just happened to hit ice. And I just went backwards downhill and hit my head. And that was like, now I'm very, that was such a bad concussion. Now I'm very careful not to hit my head. I'm like, you can only do that so many times before you really can't take anything back from it.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd hit my head when I was younger with horse riding, with training. And then I'd burned both of my hands at one point. I burned, third-degree burns on my hands, and I have scarring, from it. And but luckily I didn't need to have surgery. They thought I would, but that was all from dealing with, candles and essential oils at home. And it's so stupid, right? Like, it's always some stupid thing.
It does.
And I know how to put out a fire, but in that moment you panic, but also the fire is hitting the ceiling. You got to make a quick choice. The fire extinguisher was further away, and there was too many steps. In my head, there were too many steps to getting that, pulling the pin and using it, than just grabbing it and flipping it upside down into the sink. And I would have been okay had it not been oil.
Yeah, I wanted to stop and point that out because I feel like that's a very stunt person thing to say. People don't always think about that, but because when we're doing stunts, we're just trained in a way to think about things in the steps. And a lot of people in that moment, some people instinctually will too, but like I feel like time slows down and we're able to be like, don't have time for this, and there's a different problem solving. I just noticed that with the more stunt people I talk to, that when we're in real life situations, it's like we have a time bubble and we have time to figure out like what we're doing and do things quickly. But it's just, I don't know, it's just really interesting hearing you say that. So I want to comment on it.
Well, even, to that point with my driving, right? I didn't grow up driving. I did watch my stepmom did some pit crew stuff for a friend around a circle track when I was a kid. So I got to go into those races, but I never drove that way, but I rode bikes, and I wasn't a motocross person, but we'd mess around on dirt bikes and four-wheelers when I was real little, and we were in like West Virginia at the family farm. And then as I got older, my dad got into motorcycles, and so we were spending, part of our year living in Europe, and I was 13 or 14, and over there you can ride a 50cc scooter. And so I was navigating European traffic on a scooter as a teenager, and um you have to be able to slow time down a little bit. That was something I naturally had the ability to do. There's a genetic thing there too. My parents are both good at that, but also something my dad taught me. He was very good at teaching me, like, being hyper vigilant and aware of my surroundings. Like, the guy in the lane next to you, watch his tires. Is his tire turning? Because his tire, don't look for his signal, look for the tire, right? Which direction is the tire turning? Always split your lane in three and make sure you're giving yourself enough space for this guy to make a stupid decision and decide to move over, right? And just little things to be aware of, like, always be aware in an intersection as you approach it, and like always assume that the person near you is going to do something stupid. I
Yeah.
literally will just drive around on a bike and think everyone's an idiot. And then I'm never surprised. And I go, oh my God, why didn't that person stop? Oh my God, why did that person speed up? Why didn't that person look? Why? No, I assume no one knows how to drive and everyone's a complete idiot. And that's probably why I'm alive today, knock on wood. But it's just the safest way to drive. I always assume the guy behind me is going to hit me at the stop sign or the red light because he doesn't know I'm in front of him. That's one of the number one ways, I think it is the number one way that people die on bikes. They stop at a light or they stop at a sign and the guy behind them doesn't see him and they get rear-ended. So I don't go into neutral. I'm still in first gear so that if this asshole doesn't stop, I'm going, right? And I'm going to get out, and I have an exit plan already. Like, if this guy moves over, I'm going to go this way, right? I have that plan already 3 steps
That's so
ahead. And that's all translated into my stunt work too. And as a driver, right now, as a stunt driver, it's the same thing. I'm like hyper vigilant and looking, like, if this guy messes up what we've rehearsed, this is my exit strategy. Like I've already planned that, right? It's like sitting in a restaurant and having your eyes on the door. What are you going to do if something happens, you know?
Yeah.
So there's an awareness that has to be bred into us as stunt people.
I was
Um,
gonna say, did you notice, like, the further on in your career, the more you start to realize you're aware of stuff like that?
well, yeah, and there's a level of that with me being a mom,
Yeah.
right? Because I was a mom through my whole career. You know, I didn't like get pregnant later in my career and then blend it. Like I've never known stunts without my daughter present. That's just been I did 6 months of training before I got pregnant. Then I took a beat and then I came back after I had her. And then, you know, she was just there with me. I had her like, you know, in a playpen while I'm getting rib kicked, trying to learn how to do reactions. And
Yeah.
she's, you know, standing up in her little pen and throwing a shoe at me, thinking, she's like, oh my God, my mom's getting kicked. But you
Although
know, but she was raised around it. And so now she knows, she's like very familiar with stunts. But there's a hypervigilance that comes as being a parent too, that was kind of grown at the same time as that hypervigilance with stunts. And I have seen it pour over into other parts of my life, like, you know, even being in daily traffic as a driver, like I've probably saved people, you know, on the highway when a semi does something stupid, and instead of slamming on my brakes or doing what like maybe an everyday person would do as they react and panic, I can stay calm and I can have an exit strategy and I can get myself out of the way of harm so that it's not a 5 or 10 car pileup, right? Or I know how to handle losing traction, or you know, cruising into the drift of a truck so that I can like not cause a bigger accident or problem. So, and then even with my daughter, like just recently, we had a situation that happened where um, she and her two friends were playing on the street corner near the school, and a suspicious car approached and slowed down at like a 4 mile an hour speed with their windows down, eyes on the kids, and they did a real sharp U-turn on a 2-lane road, not taking any of the various driveways that they could have taken to make a turnaround if they were lost. And they whipped right around at the kids and pulled right up alongside them and slowed down, still eyes on the kids. And they didn't notice me and the other mom kind of tucked away on the corner, but we saw them. And I called the kids over and ran out to go get them, and then they sped off. So it's stuff like that where like I'm a professional driver. I know what's normal civilian driving, someone who's lost or someone who's looking for help versus very difficult maneuvers and suspicious speeds, you know.
yeah, doing for sure being in the stunt industry, I feel like everything we do, even with acting, like you start to see like I mean, we're studying society in a way. Like we're studying movement, whether that's how the car moved, which gave you that awareness, like this isn't a normal thing for someone to do. You're looking for things differently. You have different lenses on.
Right. Yeah. And there's like a million hats I wear, right? The
Yes.
driver hat, the mom hat, the, you know, the actor hat of like watching someone's facial expressions, watching their eye line. What are they looking at, right? Like, where's their focus? What's the emotion on their face? What's body language? Things like that. Especially as like an action actor, you know, when we have to like recreate the the principal actors, the
Movement.
way they, yeah, the way they walk, you know, little choices they make, how do they move their hands in relation to the rest of their body, where does an emotion start in their body first, is it coming from up here and moving down their body, or does it come up, you know, like there's all these different ways that people move and emote and feel and relate to the world around them, and we have to like micromanage that almost.
Yeah, it's very different in our lives. I do wanna, pull up your reel though, so, because I really I got excited when I started watching your reel, and I was like, "I gotta start watching it, I gotta save it for the show," so I didn't watch all of it. I
Okay,
really, really wanted to save it. So just so you know, I'm as excited as you are.
that's cool. I'm more embarrassed, but
Yeah.
okay.
No, can't be I mean, like, we all don't always love watching our stuff, but we're gonna start with your stunt reel. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so it should be easy. I, so is there a favorite, like, part of your reel that I should be paying attention to?
I don't know. I mean, all of those jobs were really fun, and some of them are moments where, I'm working on specific maneuvers. I think the most fun one I had on there is actually, God, it's hard to pick, honestly.
I
It
was just trying
really,
to put you in the
it's
hot
so hard
seat.
to pick, but the very end was a 2-lane canyon race that I did with Hank Kinsey Jr. And God bless that man. He is just such a good soul. And working with him for the day, and for TJ, it was just such a great day and such a fun project. And yeah, anyways, they're all really great jobs. And I've been really blessed to work for some really amazing people who I admire a lot.
Well, let's take a look.
Sitting good, that's that Herman Miller. Eating good, baby, that's the chick filler. In the house, I feel like Swisher. I ain't with the negative, get the picture. Now I'm stressed about some things I cannot change, but I'm blessed. 40 hours back to back, I think I need some rest. Look, when you really got it, you don't never gotta flex. I thought God ain't walking with me, I found out it was a test. What? It's a test, getting married, getting therapy, that's things I don't regret. Grandma told me watch your mouth, boy, you're getting fresh. When you really love yourself, who else is it to impress? No one left. All gas, no break. All gas, no break. Whole crew, everybody 10 toes down. Real skill, no gimmick, never trolled out. Didn't know, guess what, now they know now. Came up right when I should've broke down. It's a lot of con artists, gotta keep the pros round. Selling shows, I never had this on my soul out. In the city, gotta get a chimney itchy, no love. Triple fat goose on me, cause you know it's called out. When I show up, then you already know nothing about the show out. Yeah, didn't get the job done, that's the way that you finna get blown out. Be around the drama if they don't let you know nothing about the rollout. And boom, pour that on TJ, cause we grown now. Yeah. All gas, no break. All gas, no break.
Oh, there you go. I got chills. I was excited. I got excited
Uh,
for your reel.
Thank you.
I mean, there's so much to see there, um, and it, it showcases so many different skills. I just feel like it's just funny when you have a different stunt person watching another stunt person's reel because you're just like, oh man, that looks like so much fun, and other people are just probably like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, we get excited for what we're doing. But no, my parents' friends look at that and they're like, especially like flying off the horse and getting slammed into the wall or like slammed into that table or the fiery room with Christian Bale and like they're all like, what's happening? Like I get it, it's cool, but also, oh my God.
Well, they're not
We're-
seeing how safe it is for us, like when we're, because we know what we're doing. So they're just looking at like the movie factor.
God, and I'm surrounded by the most amazing professionals offering safety. That whole film with Christian Bale, our fire team was just some of the most like experienced, admirable, wonderful people. And Doug Coleman was on it, who did magic the entire time. So, if you want someone who's also a fantastic magician, there you go. Like the random skills some of these incredible people have. They don't need any of those skills. They're already incredible with everything else they're doing. And then they can also be like an insane stage magician. It's unbelievable. Anyone that's worked with him knows what I'm talking about. Like, it's just, we're around amazing people. And I feel very safe and very blessed to have worked with so many good ones because there's also some bad ones. And there's been some sad stories that have come from, people not having others' best interests at heart.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of stories, and I mean, like, I feel like that might be a podcast for later or at some point. But yeah, no, there. I think we know when we started stunts, we always have a stunt coordinator just as like, hey, like, no, like, listen, this is kind of some stuff that's happened, and it opens up your eyes, and that you should have more respect for the career because that is part of the safety thing. People come in, they want to be cool, and the ego gets involved, but they don't respect the safety, the lives lost or the injuries um, that we're aware of. So respect is a pretty big thing in our industry.
Yep. Yeah. I noticed that with the younger people coming in, there's a lack of respect for the people that came before us.
Yeah.
And I think that's because it used to be that you didn't get into stunts unless you were ushered in by someone who already was in it. And there was an element of needing to understand the lineage of what you were doing, and who came before you, who created these opportunities for you, and most of the time you were connected to them somehow. I think I got in kind of at the tail end of that, where I was raised to respect my elders, so to speak. And now, you have social media that gets people in, or they're tapped in on one skill that they have. And it's just very different environment. Not that the tafting didn't happen before, but I feel like we're kind of losing touch in some ways with how we even got here.
Yeah, well, now it's kinda like that social media, like, instant gratification, like, they're like, "Oh, but I can do this skill, I should, I need to be on this movie, I should be doing this now."
Right.
And before it was very network and relationship based, and, like, my stunt coordinator watched me for years to the point where I didn't even think I was ever gonna get a job until he called, so and and he took his time, he waited till I was ready, but yeah, I feel like it's a lot of the instant gratification culture with
Yeah.
it.
Well, and there's so many components to being ready too. It's not just being able to do the skill. There are plenty of talented athletes in the world who could do amazing things on a motorcycle that I probably could never do.
Right? Some of
But
these athletes.
can they listen? Can they follow directions? Can they speak up for themselves in a, you know, civil way, in a respectful way? Are they going to be a team player? Are they going to be playing it safe? Are they going to know what half speed, quarter speed is before you go full speed and gun it? Like, are they going to make good decisions? Or are they going to be impulsive? Like, there's so many things. And are they going to get along with everybody? That's another whole thing. Like, you've got to spend time with someone and you're traveling with them and in a social setting. Like, are they going to be able to play nice with everybody, and are you going to enjoy being with them? I think that's why a lot of people hire their friends and their relatives, and because you know how that click works. I often think back to like my wedding, and I had to put people at tables together,
Oh my god,
and
that's a
I'm dealing with like his family, my family, all the weird components in each of those sides, and then putting them together, plus like our friends from different social circles, and then business acquaintances, and then business acquaintances of family members. It's a like, okay, I think that person will get along with that person, and that person, that person, and put these ones there, and then like maybe this one over here. I got really good at it. And I remember at my wedding, we actually had like a table wars, because it was like, no, our table's better than your table, right? And then like they were all competing with each other and having fun and like ripping apart the centerpieces and like doing their hair. It was a Marie Antoinette themed wedding. So
ah,
everybody was like the feathers and flowers and very drunk on the martini bar. But it became like it was a whole art in itself to know who to put where. And
yeah.
so I imagine, for people coordinating these bigger, longer runs, which I've only coordinated smaller stuff, and I'm new to it. The bigger, longer runs, there's so much more involved, even just in that part alone.
That's true. I mean, like, I think some people are like, "Oh, why didn't I get on that show?" But if your stunt coordinator goes, "Okay, well, it's not that I didn't wanna bring you out, but I know, this group of people," and especially when you're taking hits from each other, you don't know what you're doing. They don't wanna necessarily have you out because they just don't think it's a good working environment for all the players, and it's nothing personal. It's just, you'll get put with a group that you work better with, which
Mhm.
is beneficial for the show, and you have to check your ego there too, right? Like, it's not about that they didn't wanna bring you out. It wasn't the right fit maybe in that regard, in that
Yeah,
situation.
you can't get your feelings hurt in this business. If
It's
if
hard not to sometimes, but it's true.
it is. I mean, as an actor, I remember one time I got told I had bad hair and a terrible nose.
Oh, yeah, they don't hold back at all, do they? Mm.
No, they don't. And I was like, boy, that's rude. And that's, how do you not take that personal, right? You're like,
Oh, yeah.
literally, you just picked apart my physical image. Like,
I got told I
um,
didn't get a role once because I didn't have long enough legs, so they cast the other girl purely for her legs, and I was like, "Well, those aren't grown anytime soon, so here we are."
this is what I got.
I know.
what do you, what do I do with that? Like, yeah, that's wild.
It comes down to the smallest details sometimes.
I just, I've gotten to a point now where I don't know if it's me dissociating when those comments come or what, but there's a level of just I don't care anymore. And like I am me. I take care of my body and I love it in a way that doesn't damage it, right? I'm not going to throw up my food or withhold and starve myself for a role. I don't believe in that. And if I'm not the right body type, then hire someone who is, right? Like, sorry, we're not curing cancer with this job. So I'm not going to cause myself to have cancer later because I stressed my body out that much, right? And
Yeah.
there's something to be said with mind body connection. You have to be aware of that. And I think that's how I ended up having this other job in that as well, because I see what people put themselves through mentally, physically, and emotionally for these jobs, whether it be an athlete or an entertainer. And I myself have done it. And I just won't do it anymore. And I won't, I've allowed myself to separate myself enough to go, this is just a job. This, I show up, I do my job, I go home, and then I have my life, right? So having that degree of separation, it helps me to not have my feelings hurt so much. And not that I'm invincible, because I definitely have my moments when things get slow and you're like, why is my phone not ringing, and then you're like, you catch yourself in that trap of like, I'm a horrible person, nobody wants to hire me, blah, blah, blah. And then your phone rings and you go, oh, whoops, I'm an idiot,
Yeah.
oh god, I was so mean to myself, why did I do that? I feel like it's women, we're better with that because we PMS, and so we'll do that. We'll have like a week where we're like, oh my god, I hate all these things. And then your period comes and you go, oh, duh.
Should have remembered it was on the calendar.
Right. Oh, oops. Oops, sorry. Yeah. So I think that it's similar, right? And it's important to have a distinguishable difference between that world and then your own actual personal world. And you have to protect your personal world. You need to protect yourself, your family, your feelings, and your mental health, because it reflects in your physical health and also the way that you are able to approach your career. And it's funny, as soon as you let go of that control, this is something I've noticed. When I'm like, when my feelings get hurt more and I feel like I need to grab at this job or this career, it like pushes stuff away from me. But when I relax and I just take care of me and I prioritize my mental, emotional, and physical health, and I don't get my feelings hurt and I just go whatever and I like keep doing my thing, the work pours in, the people pour in, right? It there's a law of attraction behind that.
Well, I feel like that's a trap that so many, especially new performers, get into with that like instant gratification. Like, as soon as their career kicks off, they want to keep going, which is fair. We all want work, but it is that part where then when you stop getting the work in and you focus on it, you're almost forcing it. And like I said, it's working against like the flow and the law of attraction. And then when you just get back to training and living life and just making sure your stuff is out there, and you're keeping an eye out, or you're connecting with your relationships, and then all of a sudden you start getting work again. You're like, oh yeah, I didn't have to stress, but I was forcing it before, and I just need to take a step back and be like,
Yeah, breathe. Well, and there's with you mentioning that, staying in touch with people, right? But there's a fine line there, because are you staying in touch with people because you genuinely want to be
that's a
in
good
their
point. Yeah.
world, right? Because
Yeah.
there's people who are just like, they want something from you,
Yeah.
right?
We can sense that pretty quickly. Like, you know.
Right. But like, sure, your friends work and have work and can help you generate work. I guess I'm trying to think of how to word it, right? Like
Yeah. I mean,
for
like,
me,
sorry, go ahead, and I'll come in after.
I was gonna say for me, I think of the people I want to work with are the people who I admire and respect in real life. Because if I'm gonna trust someone with my life, and I'm going to trust someone with my safety because I have a little girl to come home to, right? And if I am going to spend any of my free time with these people, I want them to be people who I like. And that's the difference for me is when I reach out to these people, I think they all know I genuinely love and care about them and I admire them. And there's something about them beyond just the fact that they have work. There's something about them that I genuinely want to know and be close to because I admire them and I'm very careful about who I keep in my circle these days or who I associate with both professionally and personally because I've had some really bad experiences with that. And now I have a very hard line I keep in the sand in some ways of who I will uh, associate myself with. Because it's not just me, it's also my daughter. Who is she seeing me be a part of?
Yeah. Who's
Right.
influencing her and yeah.
Right. So I think for the people who are really hungry and they're operating out of this like lack energy and they're calling and reaching out to everybody that they can. And it comes from this very like, yeah, you can see it, you can feel it. It's like gives you an ick, right? You're like,
We'll call it the ick.
ick. It is an ick. It's a
But
professional ick.
that's what I was going to say is, I noticed that, and of course, when we're all younger, we're told, always hustle your coordinators or they want you to keep reaching out to them. But then you get to a point where it's like, you have hustled them a little bit because you're told to. And then you start to actually genuinely, want to know more about them and, you want to come along for their training and, or like you said, you want to be friends with them, but then it's like they won't pick up the call because they're like, oh, she's just going to, she's only here for the work. But you're like, no, I've actually, now I just genuinely wanted to get to know you and build that relationship. So then I work with you. I'm also more comfortable, but then now they won't pick up the call because, or they've just gotten to the point in their career where they're getting hassled so much that they don't care who's calling them. If you're not already, like you said, in that circle, now they're just hesitant with everybody. And that makes it really hard to build those relationships.
It does. Yeah. And I think that's where we have to exercise patience with people, right?
Yeah.
And not take it personal. Because we have to remember that all of these individuals have their own experiences in life and they've probably also had bad experiences with people. And now they're protective for certain reasons. And maybe they're operating out of their own traumas, right? And so it's not you, it is them. It's their need to protect their space and have boundaries. And I think that that's okay, right? And I always just relax. I trust. I go, you know what? Eventually, hopefully, I'll have enough professional interactions with this person and they'll see enough of me that they'll put it together. They'll piece it together that I am a good, genuine, kind, authentic person that
Yeah.
really loves everyone, and I love big. So I understand that needing to be protective because I've definitely put my heart out there and brought people into my life who ended up really being very bad for me, and bad for my daughter and bad for me professionally and personally. And so now I'm one of those very careful people, and then also people don't have time. I don't coordinate big stuff, but I'm a mom and I'm a single mom and boy am I busy. This little girl has a lot of stuff going on and so do I. And I rarely ever have time. And a lot of the time I only have time if you can participate in things that I'm doing as a mom, right? So I have a lot of really good girlfriends now. I don't think I've ever had so many great girlfriends in my life, but I have women in my life because they love to go to taekwondo and they want to go to ballet and they want to go take Fable to the park to play with the puppy and they want to do things with me as a parent and they like coming over here and watching Bluey together. And I maybe have a small group of male friends who will do that too, right? My platonic male friends. But I have I don't really date anymore, anyways. So, but when I did not let anyone just come in and meet and be a part of my child's life. I did that once and I will never do it again, ever.
Yeah. I
And
think like when you are in that situation, especially, getting older and more people have kids, if you're, a good person that, then at this point they want you to around their kids because you already know, you're like, I don't want to be around your kids either because then I'd want to be with your kids all the time.
yeah,
Like it goes both ways. I'll get attached, they'll get attached. So you got to find the respectful time for both parties. and make sure it is serious so neither person gets hurt.
Yeah, I have a 6-month rule now,
Right?
but
The
I mean,
rules.
guys today can't even make it past 2 months. So, so I'm like, if you make it past 6 months, sorry, I'm losing my voice this week.
That's okay.
If you
It's
make it
dry.
back,
It's dry
if you
everywhere.
make it to, if you make it to 6 months, I'm impressed because today that's like the equivalent of 2 years. I feel like, especially in LA, like on an LA timeline, 6 months is like, and it has to be consistent, not just like, oh, I saw you once over here and I'm like over there. It has to be like consistently committed relationship for 6 months, and then I'll consider you being more active in my child's life.
Yeah.
But I have a marriage mindset, and I also, I'm born again. So I just don't, I just say Jesus is my boyfriend now, girl. I don't have time for nobody else. I go to church on Sunday, and my daughter, she can know Jesus right away. So I don't I don't have to worry about the 6-month rule. But it's tough. Dating is tough as a single parent. It's tough as a single mom with a daughter. Like there's so many scary things in the world, and I've had some really upsetting situations happen with the one person that I had allowed into her life, and so I'm very guarded now. But I guess I have like a faith that eventually, when it is the right time for me to meet the right person, um
They'll come in.
that's
They'll come
yeah,
in.
it's not, I'm gonna not have to worry about those things, and 6-month rule won't be a problem, and that person will have no problem showing up for me for those 6 months, and they will have, it's just gonna be easy, and I'm just trusting that,
Well,
but in
you
the
do a lot.
meantime.
Yeah,
Hmm?
you have a lot going on. Like you're in school, and then I want to get into your hypnosis. So you're doing a lot of other things outside of the industry and outside of being a mom, but they all complement each other. So let's get into that. Tell us a little bit about your hypnotherapy.
So when the strikes happened, the first half of it, I was doing okay. I was still working. I was on going on runs, and I was doing good. And then I noticed things slowing down, even for those of us that were working. And looking ahead, and how AI and the conversations regarding AI was potentially going to impact the industry as a whole, and then what was being said about LA in general in the work here, I knew I needed to have some kind of a plan that was going to work with what I was doing, because I don't ever want to give this up. But if I need to fill in the gaps of when it is a slow season, or if I just want to build on my wealth in general, which I think everyone should do,
Yeah,
I need something that I can do together with it. And so clinical hypnotherapy was something that helped me, both as an athlete and an entertainer, but also when going through a major healing process after the split with that individual. And I was so traumatized by everything that happened. And it was very hard for me to talk about it, because the more talk therapy I did, the more I felt like I was talking myself into circles.
yeah.
So I needed actual brain change. Like my dad said, I needed like a hard reset, And
We all go through a
clinical,
hard reset sometimes.
girl,
Sometimes
we
you're
need
like,
it at least 4 times in our life. So I had tried out clinical hypnotherapy for myself, and it was a game changer, along with other modalities I was doing. But that one was a big one that really changed my life. And IEMT, integral eye movement therapy, which is closely related to EMDR. It's just there's a few differences. And I decided to go back to school for that, because I wanted to also do something that helped others. The entertainment industry, it's it attracts the narcissistic personality type for a reason, because it reinforces a person's self image, and it's for them. Even if you're creating art that others enjoy, a lot of the people that you meet in this business, it's a self pursuit, because they've got something big to prove for themselves, right? Whether it's a worth thing or whatever, there's a lot going on there for a lot of performers. It's very deep rooted. Um, and I felt like being in this business for as long as I had spent enough time in my own selfish pursuit. And I wanted to do something that gave back, but I also wanted to do something that changed the people or helped the people who I was around in a positive way. So, how can I give back and also make this business better?
Yeah, I want to point out that your website is Integral Soul Wellness, because it does go over some like the different hypnosis that you do, which does, that's why when I checked out, I thought it was really cool because you have it for high performance athletes, entertainers, and influencers. And I even was like, maybe I'll come see you for it at some point.
Yeah.
When I'm finding a roadblock, it's pretty cool. So it would be neat to hear you talk about how that does help, the artists and exactly what you do with them.
Well, there's many levels to it, right? It it can be used to go very deep into somebody's, life and the way their mind works and how it relates back to their body and their external world. And you can undo all sorts of constructs that are not helpful for them and rebuild them in a way that is helpful. And that can come with undoing, reactivity to certain traumas, you know. But then there's also the other level where it's just performance based, where, hey, we want to do better with line memorization. So we get to the core root of why they're struggling with memory. Maybe it's nerves, maybe it's panic, maybe, they had a situation that happened one time where they froze on stage in front of an audience. Like, you can usually find a root cause to why they're having this roadblock, right? So it can be also maybe they have a difficulty with letting go of a character because they're a method actor. Or maybe they're having a hard time, relating externally for some reason, and so now they're not connecting with others in their scenes as much. So that's what I do for a lot of actors, and there's more to it. And with athletes, it could be maybe someone wrecked in a race, and now they have a fear around going back to racing, but they really want to get back to it. We can work around that. Maybe they want to be better at working in a team mindset because they've been a solo athlete for so long, and now they need to work in a team environment, and they're struggling with that. Um, maybe they want to have quicker recovery after workouts. So now we need to connect mind to body as far as, recovery time being faster, and or having better gains in their workouts, faster times, more endurance, increased focus. So it's, a baseball player, how to have a better swing, So it's really amazing all the little things in your performance that you can fine tune. But also how I think what has been really remarkable for me and in a lot of the people I've seen, I've had people come to me for certain more uh, you know, I don't want to say vain topics, but more around the vanity of their career, right? Or the performance of their career, and end up delving very deep into their life, and then they realize, oh, I have these deeper issues I actually want to work on, and by working on those things, it fixes the rest. Because, but we'll get into some very deep, beautiful work around their childhood, and how they related to their primary caregivers, and then maybe that spills over into the way they are as parents as well, and then that also actually affects the way they connect to a character. So it's this beautiful like web of intricacies between their mind and their body and their performance and their mental state. And
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot that you could get out with adding hypnosis in, like I said, whether it's skill memorization, character stuff, personal stuff that you didn't even realize was affecting, your choices and things you were doing, or, confidence. And I think a lot of people, like I want to bring up, I mentioned a movie to you, what was it? To go to it.
hypnotic.
Hypnotic, yeah, okay, I was right. I was like, I don't know if I'm saying it right. Where people see that movie and it puts like the fear of hypnosis into be like, oh, if I do that, they're going to control me, make me do things I want, or like, the movie. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. You may like get somebody killed or something like that. So I mean, I wanted
Get Out
to,
too. Same
yeah,
thing.
right?
I
And
hear
I
that
don't
one.
think it should be that way. And I told you I did hypnosis twice, and I felt like I was in control the whole time. All I did was access memories that I was reliving them, and I was in control the whole time. I was aware of what he was saying, what what we were doing, but it was very beneficial. And yeah, I just want to talk about how you deal with people coming to you and be like, "Oh, I'm so afraid. What if I you're going to control me?"
Well, I always reassure them because it's not a do to process, it's a do with, right? And
Yeah,
like the fact that you're showing up and coming to a session is the very first step. Like you're already here. You already want, you have an innate desire to change this thing. And that alone is going to make it successful because you're giving permission to creating this change. All you're doing is allowing me to guide you through it, right? I'm just like the little meditation voice.
like
The
Geppetto,
little, the little
conscious.
yeah, I'm like the little soundtrack in your brain that's taking you on a journey. I'm like your tour guide, the tour guide of your, different states of consciousness. And you are, it's amazing. Like you go into a theta state, so you're in a sleep, but you're fully aware of what's happening, And besides that, there's also ethics. Like here's the thing,
Yeah,
there's ethics. There's ethics with anyone, right? If you're going to go to the dentist and be put under gas, how do you know that dentist doesn't do something weird, Or if like a therapist or a gynecologist or anyone who's practicing healthcare, you are entrusting them with a vulnerable part of you, whether it's your mental health or your physical health, your body or your mind or your spirit. Like even religious counseling, there's a vulnerability involved. But that's why you want to pick people who you can truly trust. You need to do your research,
yeah,
and it's just an inherent risk in dealing with other humans. But as a good hypnotherapist, one, we can't mind control. You're participating. If you go up on that stage with that hypnotherapist that does show stage hypnosis, you wanted to quack like a duck's, and so you did, you
I feel
know?
like, part of it too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I went on there to say you're gonna like move like this and quack like a duck, I mean, part of my brain was like, well, this is kind of like fun. You might enjoy like I don't know the adrenaline or the fun of doing it.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a part of your subconscious brain that wants to do that. You volunteered to do it. You came in, you wanted to do it. You were hoping it's real. And so you feed into that. But that's why hypnosis works. That's why it works because you already want it. We're just unlocking that fear and we're unlocking that part of your brain to help you access it, right? You want to make that change. You want to quit smoking. That's why you're with me. You want to not be triggered when you hear your ex's name. You want to not, be as reactive when your child is having a hard time. You want to make those changes. You want to be a better performer and not get stage fright when you walk out to perform. So because you want that, you're going to get that result.
yeah.
It
I
makes
mean,
sense.
yeah, I found it super super interesting, and like I didn't know that about you. Obviously, like when we first started talking, and I was just like, I gotta talk to her about this because I mean, obviously, I just watched that movie, and I was like, I feel like this got to be a good question. Um, So I definitely wanted to go into that. And then you're also in school for mind body psychology. And I feel like as a stunt performer, anytime we learn, any mental stuff or body stuff or how our bodies move, and obviously you're studying like the mental aspect of it, I think that's got to be so beneficial. Like you said, everything we do is always connected and helps us as actors or professionals.
It's very interesting. At one point in time, there was a belief that the mind and the body were separate. There was no connection. And especially with working around so many athletes and entertainers, I see so much of how mental state impacts their physical health.
Yeah.
And so, it's a fascinating subject. And it's helpful to also be able to identify certain things as a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm not in the field of diagnosing. And there are certain things that make people more at risk for abreactions to hypnosis and can create a liability issue for me. And so I need to know when to refer someone out to someone who can address what's actually going on with them. I have to be able to identify those things that tell the telling signs, of when someone needs to see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a neurologist, a gastroenterologist, and have them come back on a referral to me. And it gives me the ability to be a better overall healthcare professional for my clients as well, and to really be able to support them fully and build them a great wellness team. So mind body psychology, that's an important factor for that. And I may continue to pursue more degrees once I finish this AOS in the same field, but I'm not quite sure because I don't think my final stopping place with my education puts me at wanting to be, an MD at all. I really enjoy what I do with clinical hypnotherapy. And I like that I get to help people who already are just looking for the solution. I don't need to diagnose or do any of that. Like, I am the solution. You come to me, we already know what we're going after, and we're going to do it. So, and there's something about that that I feel is very beautiful because it's already a safer space when you come in.
Yeah, I mean, creating a safe space and that for anything like that is really important. And so, now we're talking, you do stunts, you do acting, you're doing some coordinating, you're doing hypnosis, you're doing the other school program, and you're a mom, you have a cooking show on Instagram, and I think what's really
That's just
important,
fun.
like that's
That's
my
just
fun
fun.
thing. But that's what I think it's good to point out is you have so many people like we've talked about before too is some people are they eat, breathe, sleep, stunts. Like they can't focus on anything else and they forget that there's so much more to life and being human. And that helps with being a stunt person and an actor. That's why you're told, go experience things, like it helps you as a performer. And I feel like sometimes, I've had it before where I stop posting, skills or things that I'm doing. People are like, oh, you're not a stunt person anymore. Oh, you're not doing this just because I'm posting about other things. I'm like, well, I am those things, but I'm still, there's more to me. And there's obviously more to you. Like we've talked about so many different things already. And I don't know, what do you think of that with, how do people get past it? All of a sudden they're not a stunt person. Now they have to identify as something else because they don't do anything else.
So complicated
I know it's a
topic.
lot there.
So I think when it comes to when you get into stunts, I don't know about you, but I heard, well, you can't be an actor too. You gotta
I
pick one or the
That was
other.
the first thing I heard. Well, you have
Yeah.
to pick one or the other. You'll never help you.
It's such bull because you can absolutely do both. And many of my stunt roles I got from acting. Like I just did Rescue High Surf and I had a whole role as the Russian Vanya. I played Vanya, and I had to go to Hawaii. I spent almost a month in Hawaii as a Russian tourist, and I drowned because I couldn't do this. They make me speak
And I
real
got
Russian, though. I don't speak real Russian. I have accent. I not do actual language, but I had to learn it in
yeah.
12 hours. There was Cammy Bruder. Godspeed to him. I mean, he pulled it off too. We had to learn Russian in 12 hours, but you can do it. And it was our ability to navigate water safely as water experts, as well as being great, strong actors that got us that role. So yeah, don't let anyone tell you you can't do both. That's so silly. It's
It is silly.
especially in today's age.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, because
It-
like stunts, acting is a niche for stunts, right? Because people they want stunt people that can act, and then with acting, they want sometimes actors who can do their own stunts, or at least they can work with their double because they're doing different, scenes together.
yeah, it's good to have all the little skills in your pocket. Um, but also there's this weird phenomenon now because of the age of social media as well. It used to be that you were only a celebrity if you happened to make it in the A list.
Yeah.
And now you can be a celebrity if you go online and hawk to. So
I can't believe you brought that. That's hilarious.
But it's true. And so there's this false sense of importance that people put on their um, social media image and their um, role as a actor or a stunt performer. I really struggle with this topic because I get very frustrated with it because at the end of the day, we're all humans and we're all here doing the same thing, even if it looks different. And at the end of it, we all are going to leave the same way, and none of us are taking anything with us.
Well, that almost reminds me, when you see in, like, the tabloids and stuff, like, "Oh, so and so's at the market buying groceries. Oh, look how human they are," and it's like, well,
Oh my
we are
God.
we are
Yeah.
human, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. But also, we do that. And then there's people who do it to themselves where they're like, oh, I have more followers than that person, so I'm not gonna talk to them, right? I'm not gonna socialize with them, or like they don't even think of you as being someone who can add value into their life until you have enough likes and followers for you to fit their scale of measurement, right?
Well, and I feel like that's the people, though, that, they have that ego in the industry where it's how popular or how famous you are, and I just don't feel like that gets them very far because they're in it for the wrong reasons.
Right. Well, I've seen some of those people get really far too.
That's
So,
yeah.
but not without it eventually biting them in the ass. And that's the thing. Like maybe that's their lesson. Maybe they do get really far. Like the higher up you go, the harder you fall. That fall hurts more. So sometimes there's a lesson in that. Sometimes they're an example for others. But also, um, I just think I once had the advice given to me when I was younger: give everybody a chance to hear their story and who they are. And even a homeless person on the street, like, don't be so fast to judge because their story might truly have a lot to offer you in to learn from. I mean, I used to work in downtown Orlando when I was like 19. I passed out flyers for clubs. I was also a singer at the time. I was performing dance music, but to make money, because musicians don't make money, I would work for these entertainment companies and I would pass out flyers on the street corner when everyone would come out of the club totally drunk. So many nights did I get to stand on the corner on Orange Ave or Mills or whatever in downtown Orlando and talk to, homeless people. Where are you from? Where's your family? What happened? How'd you get here? What would you do different? Some of them can talk to you. There's some that can't, but there are some that can, and you should hear them. Um, it's, we need to create space somehow in our minds for everyone with a level of acceptance and forgiveness and understanding and compassion. And I struggle with that too, even for people, who in my past have hurt me. Like, that's something that I've really has been at the very forefront of my mind lately, is like, how do you find forgiveness, and where is the line between like forgiveness and understanding and then being a schmuck? Right? where do
Yeah.
we where do we start to need to protect ourselves, but also where do we need to maybe listen a little more with less judgment and more space in our heart for someone that's maybe not in our normal bill.
But I mean, it just goes to show, like, how diverse opinion is out there, and, how I don't know, I think you have to kinda, when you start doing the work on yourself, you start to understand how much everybody else is going through, and you stop kinda judging, and, if people fall off, they fall off, and you move in a different direction.
Right.
But, it's hard. It's a hard thing to navigate, and I think especially right now with social media.
And I encourage more people to work on themselves.
Of course you do.
you know,
Your job.
Self work, we all need it, and it never stops either. Like, I'm not, just because I'm a hypnotherapist doesn't mean that I'm not working on myself. I had a therapy session today. Every Friday, I have a therapy session. I'm very religious about that. I need someone that I can bounce things off of, so I'm not, bleeding it into every other area of my life. Like, I and also to help me navigate my own decision making skills, someone who can also check my reality a little. She's been my therapist since 2021, 20 or 21,
Quite a
21.
few years. Yeah.
I was like, but 21.
Yeah.
And she carried me through some of the most intense change of my life. And she has heard pretty much every friendship and relationship and experience that I've had along this crazy path for the last 4 years. So she can be a really healthy sounding block for me without, you know,
Judgment.
yeah, if you talk to your mom's going to be like, everyone's an asshole and you're my perfect child, and you don't do anything wrong. And I'm like, I can't ask my mom her opinion on everything, but
Yeah.
I can ask my therapist because she'll turn around and go like, oh no, you need to check and balance these things. So I think it's really important, you don't stop learning and growing until you die. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's when you die is when you stop.
Yeah.
You should always be doing something and being open to growing and learning. And actually, that kind of leads into something I wanted to ask you. Tell me something that would surprise the people in this industry about yourself.
Uh, I
I mean, we
don't
know your
know.
secret hobby is cooking, but I mean, like, I gotta give us something else.
I had a whole career before any of this as a dance music singer
So, like,
and a professional recording artist. Yeah. So, and I was living in Denver, Colorado. I'll back that up a little bit more. I went to college and finished high school in Utah. Because my ass got shipped out there in the middle of the night before I turned 18. And then I ended up staying there. And that's a whole nother thing for another podcast. But um I went to Denver, stayed in Denver for a few months and Broomfield, Colorado, cut off all of my hair, got a ton of tattoos, pierced a bunch of things, and then decided I'd move back to Orlando, Florida and be a dance music musician. I think I was playing like DDR or like Guitar Hero or something. It was Guitar Hero. And I was just like, man, I really love dance music. And I grew up on dance music because I grew up in Orlando. It's like breakbeat central. And there's a lot of house music there and trance. And I mean, 90s in Orlando, there were like airplane hangar raves. It was crazy there. But so I decided I wanted to do that. So I drove back to Florida. I was 19, 18 or 19, and I walked into a club, Zinc Bar, and I walked up to a DJ and I said, I'm a singer and you're going to want to use me for your music. And he was like, oh, yeah? What makes you think so? And I'm like, I just know you will. And I went outside with him out front of the club so he can hear me. And I sang for him. And he said, I want to work with you. And I went on to sing in the nightclubs. I had a whole career doing it. I was performing live. I played and headlined at House of Blues in Orlando with a full packed audience, sold out. I sang at all the big clubs there, Firestone. I played Langerado Music Festival. I went down and did Winter Music Conference and sang there. That's where like Ultra Music Festival is down in South Florida. And I went all over. I had music every, I had trance, house, breakbeat. And then one day after a series of events, I had someone approach me, a fan of the music, who approached me and told me about her partying and listening to my music. And I got really disheartened because I realized that I, as a dance music musician, was making stuff that people were losing touch with reality through. And sometimes that's okay, but there's a point where it's not. And I want people to feel things with my music and with my singing. I want them to feel things that heals them and doesn't enable them. And it felt dangerous at that point. Like the whole industry, the music industry felt dangerous. And I had just had a really big track come out. I had a song called Organica under the name Michelle Elise with the producer Chris Domingo. and Black Hole Recordings sub-label took it and signed it. That's DJ Tiesto's label. And it blew up. And it was like one of the summer hit tracks in Ibiza. And it was like sold on Amoeba Music. It was big. And even despite all of that, I was like, I need to get away from this. Like, I felt like that business was going to kill me, honestly.
So you got it in when you felt like it was time to go. You're like, this isn't
I
hitting the
pulled out.
audience the way I want. Yeah.
I mean, I was seeing success and I
Yeah.
would have continued seeing success, but I didn't want to be like an Amy Winehouse. And
Yeah.
I just didn't like what it was supporting in other people either, you know? Um, I want what I put in the world to do good, right? I want
Yeah.
to create healing and love and constructive, beautiful things that make people better, that help people. And I didn't feel like I was really helping. It may be that person thought in that moment I was, but I knew that what it was condoning was dangerous. And so I needed to get out of it for myself too, you know. So I totally stepped away from the music industry. Now I still sing, but for fun. It's on like my Instagram, you know, and I like might make a song once in a while or write something and then put it out, but I don't perform anymore, and you know, I don't do stuff really. I mean, there's a part of me that misses it. I really do.
What about doing like musical theater or, doing a movie that's a musical? Like, I'm sure you could find a way to still have music in it.
Absolutely. You know, and then when I went and saw Wicked, I was so inspired. It was such a damn good movie, and they did so good. And boy, did they get snubbed at the Oscars. What the hell? I cannot believe that Amelia Perez got the awards that it got. I don't know what crack they're smoking there at the Academy, but that was wild.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I feel like all the award shows, you kind of sit back now, you're not really sure, like, if it's
it's a
political or what's going on, like, it's not the same.
popularity contest,
Yeah.
political, making a statement out of it. I don't know, but I just felt like some really bad decisions were made. But that being said, I would love to do movie musicals, and I would love to do, I've even thought, look, I'm not against even doing community theater. I know everybody, there's people out here and performers out here that are like, I've worked with this person and done this thing, and I won't work for anything less than this. And I'm like, oh my God, community theater is fun. Like,
Yeah.
being a part of the people who are creative in your neighborhood and in your community, it's important. Community theater is what got me into this in the first place. You know, I was a
Yeah,
musical theater kid.
revisiting your roots, like, there's no harm in going back and doing things.
Yeah, and it teaches my daughter to value those things too. You know, it doesn't need to be a big movie set. It can also be a little stage down the road in your neighborhood that all your friends and family are going to go see you on. And that's okay because it's art. It's about the art. And that's something that we're losing. Ooh, I got a little mad there. It's about the
Like, I got a little heated, I can feel it.
about the art. Yeah, and it's frustrating for me because I feel like the business loses sight of that very quickly.
Yeah. So what I have is I have a couple, like, just quick questions, so we'll go through that in the end game. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, one of the questions I had for you was, what advice would you give to the next generation of stunts and performers? Especially people who wanna, they've seen this or they've seen your work and they wanna follow in your footsteps or they feel inspired by you. That usually we all have a little bit of information to give them. I know it's a hard one.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways. I feel like other performers are going to approach this a different way, so I'm going to do it different. Make sure that you have a really good, strong sense of self, and that includes knowing what is good and bad for you by having a strong stance in your own moral compass, have a good sense of discernment when it comes to people, whether that's your romantic relationships or your friendships, because it all plays into your ability to invest in yourself as a professional. And make sure that you always look at things from multiple perspectives before you act. Just like we would in a stunt, right? We might look at things from all the possibilities of where it could go wrong, or something could, you have to have a strategy in multiple directions. You need to be able to do that with your career too, because it might not, and it definitely won't pan out the way you thought that it would. It's always changing. It's, anamorphic in a way, and it's always transforming around you, and you have to have the ability to do that with it. You have to be water. Be water, my friend.
The flow.
Yeah. You have to be able to flow and carve out new ways too, be adjustable, be fluid. Um, but also know when you need to firmly stand your ground with things, don't let someone take advantage of you. Don't let people bully you into thinking that you can't stand up for yourself if you're being harassed, if you've been abused, if you've been assaulted, if you've been mistreated, like truly ethically mistreated, or you're seeing it happen to others. Like, be part of the solution. Don't be part of the problem.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, go into it with a healthy mentality. I mean, we all find our own way, but there'll be lots of twists and turns. So I like the water and the go with the flow. And actually, that actually really leads well into my end game, which is a surprise because you don't know, but I feel like you'll succeed. So I always like the game that we play in stunts, where you look around and you find 3 found weapons and 3 escapes. So look around you and tell us what your 3 found weapons would you use.
Three
You know,
found weapons?
yeah,
Like any 3 weapons in my room right now.
yeah, get creative. Like I could say, like my mouse, I could hit somebody on the head with this, and that might be how the fight starts.
I have a ring light here right now that is a very heavy metal stand, and that would really mess someone up. I also have a fire extinguisher by the fireplace, and I feel like that would make a great weapon too. Um,
What about the
and
flowers in the back? What if they have allergies?
yeah, I mean, if I didn't go with that, then maybe this authentic Navajo arrowhead.
Oh, there you go. I got a little blade.
Yeah, that's a nice little hand weapon. So yeah, those are my 3 found weapons.
I just think it's super fun because, like when we're in stunt training, sometimes you never know what you have access to. Like, you have to make a scene out of this. What are you going to do? And you're like,
Yeah,
well, what am I going to do?
I love that. That's a great game. Did you
Right?
say 3 found escapes too?
Yeah. Sometimes if I'm in a room, like, hey, if I had escape, like I have a window, or maybe I have to go, through the roof. Like, it's just kind of a fun thing.
Yeah.
Right? Your
I think I
window.
would go window. There's stairs there for a good stair fall.
Right?
Stair fall escape, and then I have a balcony that way that I could definitely rope myself over.
There you go. 3 found
Yeah.
escapes. I just think it's fun. Like, I always tell people, like, back, when I was single and stuff, that's how I'd scare people away, is they didn't like my game.
You're like, these aren't the right friends.
Right?
Well, you found your sort.
I did. So I hope that was a fun game, and I hope you use it. It's just a
I
fun
love
way
it.
to get creative. Yeah.
I'm gonna play it with my daughter.
Right? It's a good way to start thinking about things, because then if you are in situations too, you start to already be like, hey, I have escape routes. I have some things I know I can use right away on hand when you have them.
Yeah, that's a hypervigilance game. Not a bad idea. Speaking of which, I have to switch hats now, and I do have to go get my daughter, and she's
Yeah.
testing for her orange belt today. So
Or orange belt and what?
Taekwondo.
Oh, that's exciting. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for, coming on, and I hope that, she gets it and you guys can go celebrate with some ice cream or something afterwards.
Yeah, she's gonna beg for mochi.
Oh, I mean, I'm a big fan. I understand that.
Me too. Well, thank you for having me on and giving me space to talk and
Yeah.
share about myself and all the, facets that people maybe don't get to see into.
Yeah, no, it was great having you, and like I said, we were kind of one of those rare connections that I reached out to, and I was super pumped to have you. So thank you for joining me for one of my first podcast episodes.
Yay, good job. You're a fantastic host. Thank you.
Well, hopefully we'll be in touch, and you guys have a really fun day. Thank you for coming on.
You too. Bye. Enjoy the weekend.
Oh, wait, before you go, I forgot to say like and subscribe. See, this is how new I am. And we will attach a whole bunch of your links and stuff for people to follow you in the description. So thank you for coming
Awesome.
on.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.